Metro Detroit is a very unique place to live in, work in, and visit. There's no place quite like it that I've ever been to in the United States. So we're going to discuss some of the pros and cons of the Motor City. Let's get into it. How you doing? I'm Deroit Werenka. I'm the broker here at M1 Realty, founder of the company. We've been in business since 2014. We've grown this into the largest real estate firm in the city of Ferndale, Michigan, and we've got an all-star team of agents looking to work with every buyer and seller in the metro area. We're going to get into the pros and cons of living in Detroit right now, but before we do, if you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, I'd really appreciate it. It allows me to continue to push out content that's informative and educational for people just like you. First things first, let's get into the pros of living in this one-of-a-kind area. Pro number one. Natural resources. I know what you're thinking. When people think about Detroit, they think of a huge industrial area, and parts of it definitely are, but it's important to remember that the Detroit, Michigan area is located right in the middle of the Great Lakes water system. 20% of the world's fresh water is literally all around us, and that's not to mention all the thousands of inland lakes, rivers, streams, ponds, forests, and diverse ecology that's all around us. Even though we're located in this huge metropolitan area, there are tons of opportunities for people who love to go fishing, boating, swimming, hiking, camping, you name it, for the outdoors. In the wintertime, this is a huge spot for ice fishing, for snowmobiling, skiing, snowboarding. The list goes on and on. We have a ton of outdoor activities that are available to you. Pro number two, our job market. The job market here right now in 2022 in the Metro Detroit area is incredibly strong. Now, make no mistake about it, the automotive sector is definitely the largest area of employment, the largest employers in our area. And that includes the big three automotive companies, but also like the secondary, the suppliers that service those companies, and the tertiary employers that service those secondary employers. I mean, the list goes on and on. But make no mistake about it, our economy is no longer 100% tied to the auto industry. It's a very diversified economy at this point. Probably in the last 10 to 15 years, the mortgage banking industry has become a huge sector of our local economy, as well as the tech industry. And then you got to factor all of the other employers, obviously, that help and serve and support those sectors as well. So our local economy right now, the unemployment rate is super low, much like the rest of the country, and the average wage is way up, a lot higher than it was just a couple of years ago. Pro number three, the ease at which we can travel around the local area and actually have access to international and nationwide travel as well. Metro Detroit has a very extensive freeway system, and take it from me as someone who travels quite a bit. I've been all around the country the past couple of years. We definitely have traffic and rush hour, and at times the freeways can get a little bit congested, but by and large, you're going to be able to move around the Detroit area a whole lot better than most major metropolitan areas. Our roads are in overall better condition than most of the other cities that I travel to. In terms of, traffic flow is a lot faster, and the roads themselves just are generally in better condition. Having several major freeways come through the Detroit area also makes it easier to travel around the country. North, south, east, and west, we have major freeways coming through our area, so you can get pretty much in any direction, relatively rapidly. And having the auto industry located in Detroit also makes it a hub for international travel as well. As far as domestic air travel is concerned, Detroit's a hub for Delta Airlines, but we're serviced by dozens of regional and international air carriers. And internationally, we have nonstop direct flights to places all over the world. Cities such as Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Germany, Mexico City, Nagoya, Japan, Paris, Seoul, South Korea, and Tokyo all have direct flights straight out of Detroit. And it's probably worth mentioning that we're also on an international border with Canada, so car travel to anywhere in Canada is pretty easy right here from the Detroit area. Pro number four is ease of navigation around the area. Now, most people have heard of 8 Mile. Now, that's the road that Eminem named a movie after. It's known as the dividing line between Detroit and the suburbs. But did you also know that every mile heading north from there, there's another mile road? so that you pretty much always know how far north or south you are in relation to the city of Detroit. It's a pretty cool system. So I've traveled all over the country and, several countries all over the world. I've never seen a system like it. Most cities have like a grid pattern, and we're no different. It's just that instead of memorizing all, what street goes where, we just know in relation to what mile road we're on. And the way that they have it set up, like every 4th mile or so as you head north out of Detroit is like a main east-west artery. So as you're moving north, you have I-696, which is a major east-west freeway, and that kind of straddles 10 mile and or 11 mile. Moving north further than that, 16 mile is a main road, and then further north, Hall Road, which would be 20 mile if there was such a thing, is a massive like 8-lane monstrosity that traffic moves really, really quickly. So if you live in Detroit or have traveled to Detroit and you have other pros in mind, I'd love to hear about it. Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what everybody has to say, and that'll help me make future videos down the road. So as with any big city, it's not all sunshine and rainbows here, so in the interest of being fair and objective, let's talk about a few of the cons of living in Metro Detroit. Con number 1, I'm going to talk about real estate costs right now because the average home price has gone up substantially over the last couple of years. Now there's a few reasons for this, and I've outlined it in another one of my videos, but a lot of it has to do with just overall lack of inventory, home builders not being able to keep up with demand for new homes, as well as people just moving into our area. So we've got people that were already competing for homes that have lived here their whole lives, and now we have more people coming in because of our other industries, and that's just exacerbating the problem. Now, the good news is for people that are coming from other parts of the country is our overall cost of living is substantially lower than in many parts of the country, but at the same time, people that are used to a certain price point for homes here are definitely going to get sticker shock, at least in this current market that we're in. Con number 2, I want to talk about water pollution for a minute. Overall, the Great Lakes system has extremely good water quality. It wasn't always the case, but over the last 50 to 60 years, there's been a really concerted effort to kind of control water pollution and just make the overall water quality better. And right now, especially the upper Great Lakes, the water is absolutely pristine. That being said, Lake St. Clair, which is the closest body of water to the northern end of the metro area, is definitely a work in progress. And Lake St. Clair empties into Lake Erie through the Detroit River, and Lake Erie has been known to have issues with algae blooms and water quality, stuff like that. Better than it used to be, but it's still, we're not quite where we want to be yet. And in addition to that, there's still some industrial runoff and just contamination that happens in the Detroit River just because of its proximity to the really industrial areas of Metro Detroit. Now, it's important to keep in mind that people here are very cognizant of that, and steps are being made to control pollution and just improve water quality all the time. And as far as drinking water goes, we have some of the best drinking water in the country. I think we're second or third in the nation, usually in terms of water quality for our drinking water. And the water supply for the city of Detroit and the Detroit metro area all comes from Lake Huron, which definitely doesn't have a pollution problem of any way, shape, or form. Con number 3, the reputation for being a high crime area. Let's be honest, we're not kidding anybody here. One of the first things that people think of when they hear Detroit, Michigan is crime and urban blight. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you that doesn't exist, but you have to keep in mind the Metro Detroit area is a massive area, and there are parts of town that exist where the crime rate is above the national average, but there's also many areas where it's below the national average. And as for being a blighted area, the city of Detroit specifically, but overall the entire metro area has taken very aggressive steps for several years now to address that issue. And the prevalence of vacant houses, burned out houses, is not nearly the problem that it has been in years past. I mean, there's entire neighborhoods that 20 years ago there might have been one house standing on a block, and the rest of it was just burned out, boarded up houses that were just sitting there decaying. Those have all been knocked down, and in fact, parts of Detroit are kind of turning back into prairie. I mean, that's the reason why there's urban farming is a thing here now. There's wildlife that's coming back and repopulating some of the neighborhoods where they just hadn't existed for probably close to 100 years. But there are areas for sure that are still a little bit sketchy to go to. And if you want to do a little bit more research on that, I always send people to the FBI website. It's a great resource for crime statistics. It gets down to the granular level. You can look at each individual neighborhood and do any kind of in-depth research that you want to do regarding the crime statistics or anything else. And that brings us to con number 4, which is going to be business closures and shortened business hours. One of the things we've been dealing with locally, I know it's a national issue too, but it's definitely happening here, is just business staffing during the COVID pandemic. Now, we've already talked about how plentiful jobs here are, and the unemployment rate is super low, wages are way up, but at the same time, businesses are having a hard time finding enough people to stay fully staffed. And while the pandemic has unfortunately caused a lot of businesses to close, the majority of them are still open, but it's pretty common when you go around town right now to see shortened business hours, businesses closing early, opening later, or in some cases just not opening at all on certain days. My best recommendation for that is when you want to frequent a business in person, just call ahead just to make sure they're open. You can go by their website a little bit, but a lot of times, they might not be updating it as frequently as they should. If they have to close on short notice, they're not going to update their site. So just call ahead, make sure they're open, and then go and enjoy your favorite businesses. Well, thanks again for watching. That's my pros and cons list for Metro Detroit for 2022. And again, if you have other things in mind that are a pro or a con, I really appreciate it. Just comment down below. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And I would just love to hear what you guys are thinking about as well. And that'll help me for my next videos. And also, if you would, just like this video and subscribe to this channel. Again, it really, really helps me out. I really appreciate it. And it just allows me to bring more content directly just to people like you. And until next week, thanks for watching again, and we'll talk to you soon.